It's so great to see everybody in person. And I bet you all feel like you've been sitting too long, right? All right. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Robert Schmidlein. And it was my honor, and I was really lucky to meet Robert back in 2018 when he wound up on a teacher leadership team for Los Angeles Unified School District. And so you know that LAUSD is the second largest district in the nation. And so Robert has an incredible reach as part of this leadership team. And so it didn't take too long before I realized, wow, this guy really knows something. And I realized I was dealing with a scholar, and that Robert, while he was teaching middle school, actually had a doctorate in physical education. And you'd ask him a question, and he'd come back to you with some theoretical framework, and you're like, okay, this is pretty cool. This guy knows everything. And then he decides, I'm gonna go teach kindergarten. He moved away, and that kind of bummed us out. But then a year later, he comes back, and he's now teaching high school, and I think he'd become national board certified shortly before he left, right? And at that time, we started to work on curricular maps for the entire district. And so that was a 3-year process, and it's been a really an amazing pleasure just to watch Robert interact with the teacher leaders on that team. It doesn't matter if they're elementary, middle school, or high school, he brings out the best in people, and the conversation that he has with them is just amazing. He even made it onto the radar of our superintendent, which is no small feat in a district that size. And it was when there was a life-threatening emergency on the campus, and he got all of the students inside, I think, a locker room. There was an individual chasing his students with a sword across the grass field. And I think they forgot about you in the locker room for like the entire day. You were on lockdown, right? So he went above and beyond. And so I just can't stop talking enough about Robert. Let me check my notes here. Oh, during the COVID pandemic, I got a glimpse of his classroom, and we all dropped everything and had to learn all these digital resources overnight, and it was this forced professional development on all of us. And a lot of teachers were like, well, I'm gonna whip the kids into shape, they're not moving enough. And Robert is teaching offensive and defensive strategies using Star Wars figurines. And I was like, all right, this guy is going above and beyond again. So before you know it, we're hosting professional development with like 300 teachers in a Zoom call, and there's Robert leading the Zoom call, and again, rising to the occasion of a teacher leader. And it's been a real pleasure today to watch him interact with some of the university folks that he used to teach with at Sacramento State and San Jose. So let me make sure I covered everything. I think that's about it. So with that, it's my real pleasure to introduce you to our 2022 High School Teacher of the Year, Robert Schmidlein.
Thank you, everybody. What a crazy story, right? A guy with a machete jumps onto your field, swinging it around. Quite an interesting morning at 8:30 in the morning, and he's still at it. Long story, though. But anyway, first off and foremost, I want to thank my wife and son. I feel for years of being a single man, up across 35 or 36, kind of very self-centered, very, I was a good teacher, I guess, okay? But it's really when you have a family that you realize how empathetic you have to be, what a good listener you have to be, and how much more time and effort it takes. And so as a teacher, I feel like I really have grown in the past 5 or 6 years as a married man and a father. And I have a 5-year-old over there, Nolan. Thank you, Nolan. And so it's one of those things that as a teacher, you go through this journey, right? You get a full ride to get your doctorate, and you're gonna be a professor. You're gonna work with Julia and David. Where's David? David and Julie. And then you find that your heart's actually in elementary school or middle school or high school. And I've worked at every level, and I learned something at every stop in my 11 schools. 30 years in one school, I'm very impressed. literally like 11 schools in 20 years. So I've learned a little bit on every stop, and what I learned the most from is the kids. You know, I've worked in the South Bronx, in Brooklyn, East LA, downtown LA, Santa Maria, you name it, I've worked all over. And each time, you know, you grow. You become more knowledgeable about what the students need, and that's really at the end of the day what this is all about. So although I help John at a drop of a dime, any time that he needs help with the teacher leaders, I love my job. And East LA Humanitas Academy of Art and Technology is my favorite job in 20 years of teaching. And I just want to thank those kids. I want to thank my principal, Deborah, and Jessica for just allowing me the opportunity, taking a chance on someone with a doctorate and a national board. It's a pretty hefty person to take on at an art school. So I work at an art school with very unique kids that could care less about PE. But I know I'm doing a good job when someone with blue hair comes up to you with piercings and says, hey, you know what? I used to hate PE because we ran the mile all the time. But now, like, I like yoga. I'm like, oh, all right, yoga it is. Yoga's your thing. Pickleball, they love my rubber chickens, and that's that. So at the end of the day, I just want to thank everybody in this room. What you do on a daily basis inspires people. And each of us as educators, you know, our first and foremost priority is to teach. And I just love my job. I love the kids. And I promised Lorenzo and Coco I would say their names in this speech. So Lorenzo and Coco, thank you for being my TAs. All right. Everybody have a good day.